It has happened. I was a naysayer. I did not believe. I was a disbeliever of the world of the Souls. And then I played Bloodborne, and I wondered if they made another game in the Souls series, would I want to play that? And if it looks this damn good, and reminds me of all of the things that I loved about Bloodborne, then I will. And it looks like it's on track. Ben, today you and I saw a sampling of Dark Souls 3. Mm-hmm. I think you're much more qualified to talk about it, so I'm going to pass it on to you.
It's been a little bit frustrating because there have been a lot of games that I've seen where it's like, hey, we're going to show you this really, really cool demo, but we're not telling you any information. And so you're just kind of sitting there, and you'll have 3 minutes of Q&A, and you'll be like, no, we're not talking about that. No, we're not talking about that. And so you kind of have a vague sense of the game, and I feel like I got a significant number of details about Dark Souls 3. And, I'm somebody, I feel like I've seen a lot of things that I love turn bad. And so I have sort of this innate cynicism in me. And we got Bloodborne. It was fantastic. And I thought, oh, no, Dark Souls 3 this soon, early next year? Are we going to get Souls fatigue? Or is this going to be driven into the ground? And it was like a spirit was revived within me. What I saw, and Miyazaki himself presenting the demo. I am not the kind of person, I'm just not, that hollers at presentations, but there were 2 moments where I was like, whoa, yeah! And I felt really bad because the whole room looked at me, but I couldn't contain it. That's how good it was. It was...
I think that's E3 2015. I couldn't contain it.
Yeah, it was definitely a huzzah.
So let's break things down. So, can you itemize the things that you learned that just kind of potentially, from our perspective, make up Dark Souls 3?
Paint the picture,
yes,
Ben.
That's how I wanted to do it. So this Dark Souls 3 is set in the same world as Dark Souls 1 and 2, and the focus is on the Lord of Cinder, and you might think Gwen from Dark Souls 1. Miyazaki said that the Lord of Cinder is a general term and may not apply to Gwen specifically. So I just want to get those housekeeping details out of there. But the area that you're in is a very traditional, sort of Dark Souls ruined castle. But what's different about it, and the thing that they're doing that immediately you notice, is, okay, in Dark Souls, things are bad, right? You go to a place, it's ruined, it's got moss growing all these places, there are these weird creatures. Dark Souls 3 feels more... It feels like the world that was already bad is dying. It's going away. You encounter familiar enemies. You encounter these zombie dogs. But it's like the skin is coming off them. That they've been out in the sun for way too long. You see these hollowed figures that are normally like a kind of a gross pink color are just this sick white. And everywhere, and I mean absolutely everywhere, is covered in ash. And one of the coolest moments, I wish I could have taken a picture and put it on my wall, is you're going through this area and it's almost like snow is falling, but you realize very quickly that it's ash, and you get to see its source. You go over, and there's this just gigantic dragon humped over a crumbled bridge, and the ash is emanating from its body and just populating the entire place.
Wow.
That's the scene for Dark Souls.
Painted. Yes.
And there's more we can talk about. I want to end sort of discussing the boss because it was...
Mechanics.
Mechanics. There are so many mechanics. There's so many mechanics. The first one, let's get the little guys out of the way. There are these gravestones that you can walk up to, and they're very small, they're very tiny, and you can illuminate them. And Miyazaki said that these serve different purposes, right? They can serve as meeting places. And so summon signs are returning. That is how you will get people back into your world. I didn't get to see any online play, but that's what he said. And these gravestones can serve as meeting places. They can serve as markers. And he emphasized, I think 4 or 5 times, that interconnectedness was chief in this game. This is not going to be Dark Souls 2. Well, the other thing that I thought was interesting is these gravestones will give you tiny tidbits of lore as well. So you'll learn more about the world as you go and you examine these things.
Like a message pops up when you activate it, or?
Yeah, so when you activate, when you hit X, essentially, you'll get text.
Okay.
Yep. Let's get right into the thick of it with combat.
Can you give an example of the lore for one of these? What did it say?
It was something about a nameless soldier. Like, I don't remember it exactly. Like, gave himself here. It was very vague, very cryptic, as you would expect. But getting into the mechanics, immediately I could just tell, and they didn't say this explicitly. Like, Dark Souls is sped up. It looked like a mishmash of Dark Souls and Bloodborne. So the character was more defensive, of course. He used a shield a lot of the time. But every single weapon archetype has a new special move. So the first weapon that he used was a longsword. And now with longswords, you can enter a ready stance. And your character changes from holding the sword like this to holding the sword like this. And what you can do is you can do a guard break. So the example they show, a very classic Dark Souls enemy, is the guy with sort of the tower shield, the undead soldier with a tower shield and a spear. And that jerk would just, you know, stay there and poke you with the spear. Now you can enter, and what's cool about it is it takes a long time to like see this animation through to completion. So if it's an agile enemy, you're probably not going to get away with it. But against, you know, offensive jerks like this, you sort of get into your stance and you do this underhanded swing and you break their guard, and then you can get in their face and kill them. There's also a ton of blood. Every time, you know, just like Bloodborne, every time you hit an enemy, it would just gush from them in a more exaggerated way than I've seen in anything outside of Bloodborne.
And you guys have seen the statue in the front of South Hall, right?
Oh, no, I haven't got
man,
over there yet.
glorious.
Oh, it's so good. It's really good. You can like hear it from a distance because it's just, if you guys haven't seen it, it's this guy like he's doing like a Jimi Hendrix, like burning his guitar like over the corpse, and just this fountain of blood is like flying up into the air. And when it's like hitting the plastic or like whatever like the bottom of this thing is made of, that's like looks like cobblestone, but like you can just I could hear it across like the whole like entrance area. It's just like, oh yeah, there's that, you know, Dark Souls thing. I'll check that out. But yeah, again, blood, and again, you know, coming from Bloodborne, it was like a big thing, and something they can easily do to show off, you know, PS4 and Xbox One.
The next sort of weapon archetype that they showed was even more exciting. They had a great sword, and this special attack was called the Launcher. And again, it was sort of a two-step process.
It's a Hebrew weapon.
Yeah, this is a Hebrew weapon.
Can we just? Can we
can't
just cut to
wait.
Brad real quick? Can we just get this just for
I'm just
perspective?
soaking it all in right now.
Yeah.
No, just give me the chin. Just more a little bit.
Me and
of
Mike
that.
were just staring at each other
Yeah,
right there.
me and Brad just locked eyes.
All right.
The launcher.
With the great sword, you slam your sword, the hilt of the sword, the bottom of the sword, into them, and then you do a quick spin. Again, it's underhanded, and they shoot into the air, like well above you. And you can, the way you can utilize this is amazing. So let's say you're fighting on a narrow bridge, right? And this guy's, again, being overly defensive. You can just kill him in one blow by landing one of these very slow but incredibly satisfying attacks.
So how many weapons did he use? Just those two?
So he used the longsword,
Right.
and then he used the greatsword, and then they've completely retooled how specifically short bows will be used in the game.
Interesting.
Yeah. So longbows will be the same as you would expect from Dark Souls, where you have to remain stationary to fire. Okay. Not so with the short bow. You can move and fire the short bow very rapidly. Not only that, but you can do a roll into a shoot.
Oh.
And so the way that they showed that off, it was like this sort of giant skeleton figure with this huge axe, and he would lunge it, he would leap into the air and slam the axe in the ground, and the guy playing, the developer playing, would roll out of the way and just go thwop. And I'm not kidding. Miyazaki said, yeah, so it's kind of like Legolas from Lord of the Rings. The other thing that I really appreciated as a big fan of the series, he said, you might notice that the animations for the greatsword look familiar. That's because we pretty much explicitly copied Berserk. which is absolutely
Always a
amazing.
good thing.
But so with that bow attack, the dodging into the bow, do you have the bow ready already, or can you like have?
So
a
you
sword?
don't have to. That's the thing is, you know, with the way bows traditionally work in Dark Souls is you have to like ready the bow before you can fire it. Not so here. It's just the push of a button, and you're shooting an arrow.
So can you theoretically run up to a guy, stab him a bunch of times, and then run and start shooting with the bow? And...
Yes. So you can make it sort of a dual attack where when he comes in close, you can skirmish with him, and then when he backs off, you can pull out your bow and try to get a few shots.
Can you go Dante style? Launch someone in the air and then shoot them in midair with the bow.
They didn't show any combos like that, but I had the very same thought. I'm curious how creative you can get with that stuff. The thing I do want to emphasize, though, is because you have so much more utility with the short bows, they didn't show health bars. The HUD was completely turned off.
Right.
But you could tell very easily that these arrows did very, very, very little damage. I mean, when he was using the bow, those were the longest, most drawn-out fights. So it definitely seems like their power has been reduced in that sense.
And how did the demo end, Ben Moore? How did it end?
So you go into...
Tell us about the like fusing guys.
Oh
Fusing
my
guys.
God!
I saw Ben this
God.
morning.
Oh
and
my
he
God!
told me
Thank
just
you,
about
thank you,
this.
thank you, thank you,
Yes.
thank you, thank you.
Yes.
You're right. So we do have to cover this.
Yes.
You go on top of this rooftop, and there are these basically hollowed figures. They're all clustered together, and they're all praying. And, being the curious adventurer that this player was, he walks right up to them, and something I didn't expect happened. One of them, there was a giant black explosion, and all of the other hollowed figures just got caught in the blast, and this one guy transformed into this giant liquid tar-like beast that was an absolute menace. It was the only time outside of when he had to die to end the demo that the presenter died, because the thing transformed so quickly, it transformed and then it just bit his face off, essentially. It was on top of him in a split second. And they wouldn't talk any more about this, but what that implies to me is not only do you have to deal with really difficult enemies, at any given time, with very little forewarning, what you're fighting could transform. And what? What?
Well, it's like Bloodborne. It's like Father, what's his name? I always forget.
Right, but that was a
Fine.
boss fight where you might expect different phases, right? Having that hidden threat lying in
Yeah.
wait makes going into every room that much more terrifying.
Because that wasn't a boss. You
No,
didn't have
that
a
was
name,
just
that
that wasn't even an enemy. He walked by the rest of them the entire time. Those are normally things that you ignore in Dark Souls,
Yeah.
right? How crazy is
I
that?
don't ignore anything.
Okay, you
Kill
don't
it
ignore
all.
anything. That's fair.
Kill it
That's
all.
fair.
and looks good.
Someone can come up
It
from
does.
behind.
I really like the armor. I really like that everything. I mean, they've really inventive bosses in this series and really inventive enemies. You were just talking about something that
Best in
like
the
when I
biz.
saw that, I'm looking at it and being like, I can't even tell what I'm looking at. This is insane. But for me, context has always been a big part of the Soul series, where I really want to think, like you were saying, this is a world. I really feel like this place happened. I want to wonder. I'm really curious what happened here. I like that a lot of the enemies that he was fighting were just like a corpse.
Yeah.
It was just a corpse in armor that died in his armor and is now getting up and is going to haphazardly try to take you out. But a badass looking corpse, just the expressions on these undead faces. And that's the hope that this is the first Souls game on in this next gen.
Yeah.
And it's not exclusive to anything, right? Nobody snatched. It's not like Tomb Raider. Nobody snatched this up yet.
They said PS4, Xbox One, and PC early 2016. There was a funny little Miyazaki moment that I laughed out loud at. In true Souls fashion, it seems like you can't make a Souls game without this. Really, there was a bridge, and there was a dragon that came and kind of landed on the tower, and he would breathe fire on the bridge, and you'd have to run. You'd have to find the right time to run past. And Miyazaki said, "Yeah, this is one of my favorite things to do. I really love putting the dragon on the castle, and so that's why you're seeing this." But to wrap things up, the boss. I mean, this is a series known for its spectacular, utterly terrifying bosses, and this was no exception. So this boss is called the Dancer. And this is Dancer in the most grotesque fashion. It was giant, absolutely towering, very thin, figure. I couldn't even tell exactly what it was, but it was covered in plate armor, and its face had a helmet on, and there was a visor that was completely gridded. You couldn't see anything other than blackness. And the figure almost looked like some sort of demonic bride. There was kind of like this dark like dress kind of hanging off of it. And
It was really flimsy though.
Yeah,
like,
it
it
was
was
very
like
flimsy.
translucent, and it was just like one of those things where you like, you know, like you take it in. Like I almost just take that first death because it's like I just have to look at you. You know, like I just really take in like what this thing is and how it moves and like where its weak points are, and just the way this thing would flow off of it. It's just like that's worth a death right there.
Yeah.
It's just like I missed that attack because I was just you know, like staring at this thing.
And the weapon it was wielding was equally impressive. It was this giant, thin blade that was almost as big as the figure itself. And the attacks were slow, but they had this power to them. I mean, when it slammed down, the ground shook, and you felt it. And you're sort of in this cathedral area, and there's this sort of tattered carpet. There's this like wooden balcony, and as the dancer is slamming this flaming sword down, it's destroying the environment around it.
Did you mention the sword's on fire?
Yeah, I'm
so
sorry.
you know, so you like, did you know, you dodge something, but it swings and like lights like a line
Right.
along the ground on fire. So
Yeah,
then you
so
dodge
that-
back. So
that
then now it's like a
carpet-
wall between you and this thing.
Right, would light on fire, and suddenly that's a dangerous spot. That wooden balcony would get destroyed and shatter.
And Ian, this the room that we were in kind of was very gothic. It definitely
Yes,
like
extremely gothic.
there were a lot of things that felt like classic castle Souls, but like just this one interior, I definitely got a Bloodborne vibe from.
Yeah,
so like I'm
nice.
curious if that stuff's going to translate in, or if that's like a theme that's going to run through the game.
But that's not all.
I know.
That's not all.
How is that not all?
They didn't have a health bar for the boss, so I can't tell exactly what point this was triggered. But the boss entered another phase and pulled out another sword, equally as big, but covered in what looked like darkness. And before, it was kind of like this lumbering thing where it seemed like relatively easy to dodge the sword. It seemed like it was more of a problem not running into the burning areas more than it was dodging the sword. The thing freaked out and just started spinning across the entire room and was attacking like almost twice as fast. It was so much more aggressive. And then that's where they purposefully died and ended the demo.
And the door closes behind you when you walk into this room, so it is kind of dark. So when like
Yeah.
he's just lighting this thing on fire, it lights up each of the areas, and you can see stuff better.
Do you think it's possible for the entire building to catch fire and then just?
Did seem like
If
that.
the
No,
fight
it didn't.
go-
It didn't seem like
Seemed
that.
like an attack.
Okay.
It's not like Last of Us. It just seemed like something, like a conditional like AoE attack. Or not AoE, but like
Okay.
an area affected attack. That's
Yeah,
such a thing.
yeah. It did have an effect on tangible things. It wasn't just like the ground texture now has fire on it, but no, it didn't seem completely.
Ian,
Sounds amazing.
I'm with you, man. How far have we come? The last night, the last Just Plays we did, Ian and I were at odds.
Yeah.
We were scuffling.
Souls, the
And
great.
Souls brings
the great
everyone back together.
bonding
Souls,
glue.
everybody.
I
Souls.
Any story stuff. Is there ever going to be a moment in this franchise that just there it is? That's the connection. That is how they link. Is there ever going to be a moment like that?
you
Those
know,
moments
it's
are everywhere.
hard to say.
It's not going to be explicit, whatever it is.
Somebody asked an amazing question at the session I was in, and they said, you sort of left from Dark Souls 2, is how they phrased it. You had a supervisor role, and then you kind of came back to Bloodborne. Why now come back to Dark Souls again? Why is this not Bloodborne 2 with Miyazaki's name on it? And he said a really candid but vague response. He said, "It was," and these are the words that the translator used. It was not my will to leave Dark Souls 2.
Whoa.
It was also not my will to come back to Dark Souls 3.
Whoa.
Against his
Dude,
will.
Jeez.
Uneasy alliance.
But he
Uneasy
said-
alliance.
But he said, the way that I want to be involved with these games is as a director. And so I'm glad that, if I am going to step back, this is how I'm doing it.
So intense.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you want to talk about connection, the whole option to switch, different skills for your weapon, Bloodborne. I mean, it's like that was one of the big things in review that you got excited about. That you're like, yeah, there's less weapons, but these weapons are more interesting because there's a whole different mode that opens up all these different attacks, and that was kind of done in this theatrical. It's like, how does that work? You just snap it and then it flips. It's just like classic like fantasy RPG, but it seems much more toned down in this, much more like medieval combat oriented, because it's the same weapon. It's not transforming. It's just this cool blade. The way you're using it is transforming, and it affects animation and all this stuff. So you can really decide when something comes out, like not only what weapon do I want to use against this, but what mode from that weapon do I want to use. And it's not so simple as like, oh, it's just long range or short range. It's like they all have their own thing. So whenever you open up a chest and pull a weapon out, it's like you're gonna have fun with that. There's all sorts of stuff you can examine.
You said, Huber, do you think there's going to be a moment where all three games kind of come together and you see this through line? And I think the only way that I can answer that question is Miyazaki said he wanted Dark Souls 3 to be like the beauty of the withered sun. I think that's as much information as we're going to get
We're done.
about
We're done.
the story.
We're done. Literally, that's it. Just scene. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Beauty of the withers.